My name is Will. I'm the Managing Director of a health specialist digital agency called Webbox. We work within the health sector and have done so for the last 16 years. And it's really some of that experience and insights that we've gathered over that time that have obviously put the content for this talk together today. Now, the format is going to be that we're going to go through 9 points that we see time and time again in terms of pitfalls within health sector websites and hopefully how you can overcome them. And then I want to share one key trend from 2024 with you towards the end. So first up, this is involving your users in the process. So often we see health organizations approach a website project and they've solely done that internally. They've got internal stakeholders together, maybe project managers, digital marketing officers and so on. And they've come up with the brief, come up with the ideas, and everything is done within that organization or business. And really, we want to encourage you to involve external stakeholders, external users, patients, whoever it is for you, to get them involved in the process, to understand what they want from the project. So you can do this quite easily, maybe organise some workshops to actually get people involved, get their thoughts on the current website, what they might want from the new website, and so on. But let's be honest, a fresh perspective is what's needed here. Sometimes within the organisation, we can become a little bit snowblind to some of the obvious things. So we'd really encourage you to involve your users. Second up is avoiding jargon. Let's be honest, the health sector is full of acronyms, jargon, and so on, and for good reason. But if we have a target audience, which might not be within the sector, we need to understand who we're talking to. So the caveat here is that if your target audience is also medical professionals, then we'll let you off this one. But if that's not your target audience and potentially you're trying to get in front of patients or kind of people outside of the sector, it's really important that you speak their language and try to avoid jargon where you can. Now, the third thing we see all the time is this information overload. It's kind of like this competition of how many words can I get on this page? And people digest information differently these days. We need to understand that actually if we're trying to get information across to our users, then they're not going to sit there and read through what we've seen 1,000 words, 1,500 words, and so on. Now, one little example is a technique called storytelling. Now, you'll know this in terms of maybe presentation skills, how you can use stories to make a point. But we can also use this tactic on our websites. And here's a quick example. So you can actually have interactive pages that as you scroll down the page, you've got video, text, animation. And what you'll find is as people go through that content, they get hopefully more engaged because you're actually giving them the content in a way that they can digest. Now, the fourth thing we see all the time is where maybe accessibility hasn't been at the heart of the project. Can we just have a quick show of hands? When you last built a website for your organisation, did you consider accessibility? Quick show of hands. Okay, about a third, a half maybe. It's really important that we consider accessibility for our websites right at the heart of the project. Now, this is in terms of on the front end of the website, allowing people to maybe change fonts, contrasts, and so on, giving maybe visually impaired users the ability to adjust the display settings of the website so that they can actually digest that content easier. But also it goes to a more technical level where actually the coding and the way that the website has been built allows screen readers to go through the content and allows users to tab their way through content. These are things which really have to be at the heart of the solution because actually shoehorning them in at the end doesn't really give you the best end result. Now, if you're looking for some guidelines to follow, we always recommend the WCAG 2.2 standards. There's a number of different levels. You can go to AA compliance, AAA compliance, but worth reading into that topic to understand how it would apply to your organisation. Now, the fifth thing we see all the time is navigations which are really busy and make it difficult for people to navigate around a website. So when thinking about a navigation, so often they start clean. So think back to when you launched your website and you probably think to yourself, the navigation at that point was quite clean, it was uncluttered. And over time, people in the organization say, oh, can you just add one more page, at the top, and can you just add this bit of content? And what happens is it becomes really busy over time. And I would just really urge you to kind of be the custodian in your organization to actually kind of get some hierarchy within content that needs to go into a primary navigation and content which could potentially sit elsewhere. Just quickly, we actually look at this in 3 sections. So we start with the layout of a navigation. What's it going to look like? Is it going to be traditionally at the top of a website? Is it going to be within a hamburger icon? Is it going to take over the full page? So on and so forth. We then look at hierarchy. So not everything can be a priority. And sometimes we need to really challenge ourselves there and understand where the content needs to sit on the website. And finally, we look at the content. This is the actual words in which you use on the navigation so that people can understand what it is that you do and easily navigate around the site. Now, if you're a service-based health organization, you might want to take this little tip on board. So you might have a list of services on the website, but actually it's quite difficult for people to buy based on services because they don't actually know what the outcome of that service is. So you might want to start thinking about solutions. Let me just give you an example, and I've got a screenshot of our own website here. I could talk to you about Webbox's services, and I could say that we do, user experience design, web development, paid media, and so on. But you might only know those services because you might have experienced them in the past, but you might not really know what you're buying. But if I talk to you about challenges or solutions, so how can we integrate your CRM to have more automation on your website? How can we generate more inquiries for your health organization? These are things which people find easier to identify with and allow people to engage with you without the friction. So just start thinking about solutions rather than just having a list of services on your site. Number 6 is mobile-first design, having this prioritization of your website being a mobile-first platform. So statistically, more users on average will navigate your website on mobile than desktop. Now, I appreciate there's going to be some organizations that buck that trend, but statistically that is true. So we need to think about creating websites that are what we call mobile first, which means that you start to look at the design of the user experience on mobile before considering what it might look like on desktop. Now, this little screenshot hopefully is helpful because the green zones are where it's comfortable for the user to reach on a mobile phone. Orange is a little bit more awkward. Red is a no-go, okay? Now, why this is important is because if you have call to actions or really important information within the orange or red zones, you might start to think differently about where you place that content on your website. Now, this isn't just important because more people are using mobile devices. This is also important because Google is a mobile-first index. What does that mean? It means that when Google come across your website to rank you, they will look at your mobile site first. How does it look? How does it get used? How quickly does it load? These are factors which Google will look at on a mobile before looking at your desktop site. Now, number 7, another thing that we see time and time again is the lack, really, of trust signals on health websites. Most organizations in the sector have a number of different accreditations, awards, and so on, but these are not placed prominently on your website. It's really important that if you have, for example, CQC accreditation, that might be relevant for some, but that is placed prominently on your website. We've actually got clients who it's so important for, it's part of our SLA. If that logo is not shown, it's a critical ticket for our team. These things really make a difference, not just to the awarding body, but also to your users in actually being able to access these awards and understand when a rating last happened. So start to think about the credentials which apply to your organization and where they could be best placed on your website. Now, number 8 is all around page speed. If we're honest, we're an impatient bunch. No one wants to wait for your website to load. It's a real bugbear of most users. And when we've got to wait, what happens statistically is most of us will go back and just find another source for that information. It's really important that we don't lose users at that point in the journey. and that we just enable our websites to load quickly. Now, this isn't just a user experience factor, but as I mentioned before, it's also a ranking factor. So if you're looking for your website to rank higher within search engines like Google, this is really important for you to get right. Now, you can take a look at that QR code. It'll take you to Google's PageSpeed tool, and this will allow you to actually assess your website's page speed. Google will give you a score out of 100, it'll give you a percentage, but it'll also give you some tips on how to improve the performance of your website. Now, within that score, if you're not 80% or higher, there's some significant work to do. But very recently, Google have just moved the goalposts, and actually 90% or higher has become the green zone, as they call it. So you need to be aiming for 90% or higher within your page speed scores. Now, number 9 is something we rarely see within health organisations, but this is so prevalent and on trend at the moment, and this is the lack of incorporating personalisation. If you think about users, we're all very different, and this little example shows you that two users navigate to the same web page, but they see a different version of that page. So imagery or content might be changed based on the website detecting which user has landed on it. If you think about ourselves, we're all quite different. We've got different preferences, different interests, maybe even different technical abilities. And actually our website needs to understand that and adjust the content accordingly. So here's a quick example. If you're reading information about a particular topic, then recommend that I read more about that topic because that's clearly of interest to me. That's one really simple way to put this into practice. You could also check out a tool called Personalize. Personalize allows you to plumb in some of this functionality into your website fairly easily. But this is really important that we start thinking about how we can make our websites more personalized to our users. And of course, AI has been a game changer within this space. So there are 9 things that we see on websites time and time again where we feel they're losing opportunities, inquiries, awareness, and making websites more difficult for users to track. Now, I want to leave you with a key trend. So at Webbox, we track a lot of data, we understand what's going on in the industry, and this is something which has been really insightful to see grow over 2024. So some of you will see that when you do a Google search at the moment at the top, on 12% of analysed keywords, you get what we call this Gen AI overview at the top. This is where you don't actually end up going through to the website because Google is surfacing the information to you on the search engine results page. Now, of those 12% analysed keywords, the vast majority, 67%, were within the health sector. This is a big trend that we need to watch because Google is clearly not pushing people through to websites, but it's wanting to surface health-related information on its own platform. So what will we see? We will start to see that actually less people will go through to the website, so your visitor rate will decrease. But you will need to respond in making sure that your content is crawlable so that Google can actually surface it on its results page. Now, just a couple of things before we wrap up. So at Webbox, we've got a ton of resources that we want to leave you with to help you within your organizations. So if you're currently thinking about refreshing your website or running a campaign, comparing agencies, all of these things are resources that we've got, and you can come and grab a QR code from us at the stand, which is just at the back of the seminar space here. We also run digital audits. So if you feel your website is not performing at the moment and you want that audited by a professional within the sector, please come and see us. We're really happy to run an audit and to give you some tangible recommendations to move that forward. And finally, we speak a number of times on lots of different topics, whether it's in person or as a webinar. We'd love you to either join our upcoming webinars, which is the QR code there for Eventbrite, or you can catch up on our webinars that we've been running this year, some of the topics you can see on the screen. But for now, I just want to say a massive thank you. We'd love to speak to you throughout the event. Our stand is the green one at the back. We also have a copy of the recording. If you'd like to request that, please just come and see us. But for now, just thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Okay.